forecast for the new moon in Capricorn. We can see the chart here. Sun and moon come together. You see them in this chart. Sun and moon together in Capricorn. This is in San Diego time, January 24th at 1 p.m. Sun and moon are in the same, almost exactly the same place. You see, the sun is in Shravana nakshatra, just barely there. And I'm going to move this together a couple minutes to put it right there in Shravana. Now, it's Shravana nakshatra here. So what you're seeing here is sun and moon coming together. You can watch here, it says Amavasya. Watch, as soon as they hit the exact same degree, instead of Amavasya, it'll go to Pratapada. Now it says Krishna Amavasya, and it'll say Shukla Pratapada. Watch. Step forward. Watch it change to Shukla Pratapada. There it is, right there. Boom. Amavasya there. Now Shukla Pratipada. So as soon as it hits Shukla Pratipada, it starts waxing. Before that, it's waning. So what this means is that this is a new moon, okay? And it's when sun and moon come together at the exact position somewhere, like it's doing here. That's the beginning of a soli-lunar month. Think of the word in English, month, from the word moon. So the calendar months, the 12 portions of the year, we have 12 portions of the year that are called months. They're based on the moon, but they're not just based on the moon in any way. They're based on 12 of these soli-lunar months, which don't have to do with the calendar, because you actually can't measure them exactly, because they form when the sun and moon come together based on where we're standing. But we know there's going to be 12 of them, so we break the year up into 12 portions. And the year is simply the Earth going around the sun. That's what the year is. But within that cycle of Earth going around the sun, there are 12 portions where the moon and sun also join, and at 12 different times. And it's usually measured in 12 of these portions. Sometimes you'll get a new moon or a full moon you'll get two of them in one sign, but we won't go into that. Now, again, this is, of course, based on the sidereal zodiac. These are sidereal zodiac signs. And just take a look at what's going on here as we have this new moon. Saturn moves into Capricorn that same day, like hours before. Look. Look at this. 29:59. This is on the 23rd. Literally, like today, what's going on is Saturn. This is the last day of Saturn in Sagittarius. It's going to be, by this time tomorrow, it'll be in Capricorn. And in fact, even it'll start to cross over at 8:40 p.m. Pacific time today. So in a couple hours, Saturn will officially be in Capricorn and officially be in this section of the zodiac for the next like 5 years. So this is big stuff. This new moon in Capricorn is also, again, this is a time when we're starting this cycle of Capricorn energy. Now, what is Capricorn? Now, of course, it comes after Sagittarius. So we just had the cycle and the eclipse in Sagittarius, because the last new moon was this one, and it was the solar eclipse on Christmas Day. Remember? That fun Christmas Day, we had the solar eclipse, and it was in Sagittarius. 2 weeks later, we had the lunar eclipse, was in Gemini, sun and moon opposite. Now we have the new moon, the next new moon, here in Capricorn. So, and it's in Shravana nakshatra. And again, As you know, I'll say it again though, in all the Vedic astrology texts, it's Aries and Ashwini begin the zodiac. So you have nakshatras and rashis aligned, and then everything moves forward from there. So these portions of the nakshatras measure out the rashis or the zodiac signs. So this Capricorn cycle shows a time when, for the next 30 days, we're going to be really concentrating and focusing on details that have just been gleaned from the Sagittarius cycle. And I would say the details, but it's more of the ideas or the concepts that we're like, okay, this is what brings me hope. These are my teachings. This is my philosophy. That's Sagittarius. This is my philosophy. Hopefully it also defines, this is my purpose based on my philosophy. Capricorn is then, and now this is what I need to concentrate on and focus on and commit to doing, the work I need to commit to doing in order to bring that philosophy and those principles into tangible form. Capricorn is an earth sign. One second. That's the world's biggest mug. Capricorn is an earth sign, which is to make something tangible and structured, to bring it into a structure. It's ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of focus, commitment, shattering our illusions, and taking things out of the intangible and bring them into the practical. And the practical means life on earth. Life on earth lived through your mind, body, nervous system, and all of your fears, all of those limits, that pressure of time, to force things out of the intangible dreamland that you're living in and force them to take a form, force you to produce a form with them. That's what Saturn does. And in the sign of Capricorn, so when planets are in Capricorn, they're in that environment of Saturn, where that influence of Saturn is determining how it feels, how those things feel. And so this is really good news for all of us to have these planets in their right dignity and in their own sign. And just going up, look at a few things. I do see a couple questions here, and I'll go back and look here. Amy said, Asandi Shani for the Samavasya, what's the implications? Well, again, you always just interpret it. So it just means that there's things in transition right now, and we're feeling a lot of shifting of energy and transition out of the Sagittarius abstract into the Capricorn practical and tangible. So it's kind of separate, but it means that this new moon and this new cycle has that feeling to it and has that transitional quality to it, because the ruler of the sign, Saturn, is at the same time moving. And yes, it's very pivotal just in what it means. Again, people always ask me, what does it mean? It means what it means. It means the very thing you're interpreting. So if you can interpret what it means, then that's what it is, right? So when things are Sandhi, it means they're transitioning. And so they feel unsettled around those two things. So as Saturn is moving from one thing to the next, the moon is very dark, going from one cycle to the next. They're both happening. And so that's why we could be feeling that major transition. But it's a very powerful one in that Saturn is in its own sign. And so that brings a lot of support. and I'm not going to, I'm going to do a separate video probably tomorrow about the impeachment, and just because the way these shifts have happened is just so remarkable. Just to give a little foreshadowing, we can see it's remarkable this week as Saturn was at its last degrees of Sagittarius and moving into Capricorn. We see that now, even like in the impeachment stuff happening. This is one of the reasons why I also said the Democrats should drag it out as long as they can, because once Saturn gets into Capricorn, it's going to be much harder. We're going to see the pressure and the weight of everything that's happened is going to be much more noticeable. But we've seen this week, Saturn is literally moving right now as we speak from Sagittarius to Capricorn. And we see all of the like evidence and the justice and the this and the here's all the concepts, and we're seeing them crash into this big practical, like an elephant coming and sitting, and days and days of just seeing the gravitas and the weight of all of this, which is very Saturn-like. Consequences. Saturn and Capricorn are consequences. And Sagittarius is like inspirations and ideas, but then those ideas and inspirations have consequences, even in the real world, even like what I just said. So it's time to take all of those inspirations and have them be consequential in our life, not just, this is what I believe. Well, we can believe anything, and then but the consequences of our life doesn't change unless we apply them. So again, we can see that now, even in that very public thing that we're seeing in the West here with Saturn moving. And by the way, the impeachment hearings started right when Jupiter went into Sagittarius. Literally, as Jupiter was moving into Sagittarius, that's when that started. And as Saturn moves into Capricorn, we have this part. So I'm going to do a full video on it, but just for those who've been watching, notice this has happened. And by the way, not to be a genius, because I know it would be something like this. I said this months ago, that this is when we're going to see these things shift. So, but yes, these transitions mean that that all this energy is in flux. And the way you might be experiencing it, you know, one of the things is that it can show you might be tired, sleepy, these kinds of things. They can be draining, especially new moons. As the moon gets really dark, it starts to get draining. And this, especially in the winter, and this new moon is one that's kind of like a new beginning. That's why this is the Chinese New Year new moon, because it's like a new beginning. It's like the first new moon of the new year. You know, the Chinese, like all Asian cultures, or like most Asian or West or Eastern cultures, they live their life according to the lunation cycles. They know. So this first new moon of the new year is the Chinese New Year. That's why it happens. So anyway, this is this is what we this is how we could see this. So just to get back to this here, but I wanted to answer that because it's a very good question. What does it mean to have this Sandhi, Saturn, and this new moon happening at the same time? I didn't even notice it was that close. I've been saying the 24th or 25th. And then here I'm doing this and I'm like, wait a minute, Saturn started today in Sagittarius and then ends it in Capricorn. So here we are. Welcome, Shani. Welcome home. Welcome home. And you want to think about it that way. You want to think about when these planets move into their signs, they're home. How does it feel like when you've been traveling all around, journeying all around, and now you're home? So everybody welcome Saturn home. He's home. Don't you like coming home after a long journey? Saturn hasn't been home for like 22 years or so, 26 years. He's been all wandering around. Now finally he's home. So he's home for a while. So when he's home, he's feels good. He's like, oh, I'm home. And now anybody that goes through Capricorn for the next 3 years, Shani's going to be there saying, okay, I'm here. And you're going to really know what I'm about. You're going to really know what I'm all about because I'm here. Right? So again, that's a great, I'm happy for it, man. I've started to really feel it these last couple, especially this last week. As Saturn has been in those last degrees, I've just been like, whoo, man, I can really feel it. Those who have a powerful Saturn, where Saturn is really strong, you might be just going, yeah. For me, I actually have Saturn in Capricorn, so I'm like, yeah. Because it's again, when they get in their own home, then that's their core nature. So just notice the feeling, like, again, when he's in other signs, Saturn wants to make something real and structured and tangible. And again, it always brings benefit, but it tries, like in Sagittarius, it tries to bring this real structure to Sagittarius, which is beliefs and abstract philosophies. And Saturn's like, how do I make that real? It's not a tangible thing. It's literally intangible. Or like Scorpio, which is where I was before. It's like, okay, real tangible emotions triggered. What is that? How do I make it something real? Emotions, beliefs. Now it's like, thank God I can like make it real. So again, the example that I used about the trial, it's like we're seeing the reality, like the culmination of all this work. Like, boom, here it is. It's like landing like a big elephant, like, bam. You want to know what all this stuff has been about? Here it is. Bam. We're going to methodically show you. So that's Saturn energy. When Saturn's powerful, that kind of thoroughness and the gravitas of time, like the results of time, start to go. So this is important, not just because of Saturn coming home here, but because of this new moon. Because we're talking about Capricorn energy, and that's what Capricorn is about. Capricorn is about time, the awareness of time, the tangible structure and form, but even more so because Capricorn is an earth sign, it's a feminine sign, it's more the way it feels. Capricorn is more about the feeling of Saturn. In some ways, I think Capricorn has more of those qualities of Saturn than even Aquarius, because the planets rule two signs. Aquarius also has a Saturn quality for sure. But with Capricorn, it's because it's about the feeling, and Saturn is so intense psychologically and emotionally. And it tends to slow things down and bring them into our mind. That Capricorn has a very that strong feeling of Saturn energy, which is that feeling of time and of that pressure to produce something and to ultimately to be alone and to enjoy solitude and stillness, silence, peace. That's the real virtue of Saturn, when we can look inward and confront our fears, confront that part of us that wants to stay immature and childish and not grow up because it's hard, and do all that stuff that's hard, and because we're aware of all of our shortcomings and our immaturities, and we're aware that we're not smart enough, powerful enough, that we're not going to live forever. All those things that Saturn brings onto us, which is what Saturn is, has a feeling. And the feeling is like Capricorn. So it's literally how Saturn feels. And then externally is that more Aquarius. So with Aquarius, it's based on all of those things that Saturn does. We do something, which is more like the Aquarius. It's a simple way to look at it, but it's not a bad way to see it. But with Capricorn, first we feel it. It's like, oh, this is how it feels. It's right. I'm not going to live forever. I'm not as smart as this one. I'm not as powerful as this one. I'm not as pretty as this one. I'm not as whatever it is that we're, and ultimately, everybody I know is going to die one day, and our bodies aren't forever, and nothing's forever, and nothing's what I thought it was. That's just a big one. Nothing is what I thought it was. I'd hoped it would be this way, but it's not. Again, after Sagittarius, I hoped things would be this way, but it's not. This is the reality. How that feels to us is Capricorn. And it's usually doesn't feel good. But again, that's just the surface. That's just the emotion. Hear me talk about this all the time. That's just the emotion, but that's something deeper than that. We're not just emotions. And Saturn is the one that absolutely must take us deeper than the emotions. Because Saturn then even says, these emotions aren't me either. Saturn will smash everything. Eventually, he destroys everything. Because we follow our emotions and go, okay, this isn't hopeful enough. So maybe it's this, or maybe it's this. So first Saturn creates an emotion that makes us do something else. But eventually, and again, when people have planets in Capricorn or Saturn is joined it or whatever, the emotion doesn't compel us to just try something else. Saturn goes, no, not that either. No, not the emotion either. No, stop. Because the emotion itself is also painful. So we want to just stop the emotions too. And that's good. Stop all that. Stop all of that. Okay, yeah, okay. Maybe I'll try this now. Maybe this. This doesn't feel good. Maybe this will. We just keep doing it forever. You know, I do readings for people in their 70s and 80s, and they're still like they're going to live forever, looking for the next romance or something. Again, it's not like there's anything wrong with that, but it's almost like they haven't learned, like, it's time to start looking for the fact that you're not going to be here forever. And they're just like afraid of getting sick or something, and they're in like their 70s and 80s. Again, I'm not criticizing. Of course, we're all worried about getting sick and dying, no matter what our age is. But it's almost like there's no acknowledgement that you're not going to live forever. And again, so Saturn just says, okay, stop all that. And once we do, again, it's not even that hard. Once we do, the energy goes inward. Energy can't move. Energy is never static. If it's not going out, it's going to go in. Guaranteed law of the universe. Energy is never static. That's just a law of the universe. Whether it's mental energy or physical energy, it's never static. So Saturn stops things and says, now go inward, go into it, go deeper, slow down, be still. It's okay. There's nothing really to be afraid of. Your fears are irrational. And sit here and I'll show you. Just sit here and be still, be quiet, and you'll see. You'll see. Even if you don't learn any methods, it'll work. But especially if you combine it with yoga and all of the spiritual practices, it's you know, that's what spiritual practices are. Is like, you don't just have to sit here and jump out of your skin. You sit here and like breathe a certain way or do this thing. Then Saturn's energy is the one that just takes you deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and especially the Capricorn energy. And one of the things that happens with Capricorn is we want to be alone. We want to get away from all the emotions. It's opposite Cancer, which is all the emotions, all the connection. I want connection, emotion, other people around me, losing myself and other people, all this stuff. Like, that's the difficult quality of Cancer, because of course, the powerful quality of Cancer is I have this family, I have this love, this joy, all the people, la, 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 la. That's the Cancer. Capricorn is opposite that, which is like, I don't have anybody. None of that is real. None of that is ultimate. And with Capricorn, again, we can feel isolated and alone. We want to be alone. We like being alone. We like being alone to work through our salvation, to figure this out. Like, all right, this is real. This is serious. Again, serious. Very much a Saturn keyword. It's serious, and it feels very serious. Life is serious. And so, again, that comes after Jupiter, where it's like, after Sagittarius, which is like, oh, there's this thing and that thing and everything. I'm so inspired. Again, that's great. But we can't have everything inspiring us, or it's inspiring and I'm never doing any of it. Capricorn comes next and goes, yes, all right, that's great. But this is also, it's not just a bunch of elevated inspirations. It's very serious work that needs to be done here. And I'm willing to do it. Serious doesn't mean yucky and, oh, I don't like it, or I don't want to grow up. Oh, that's not fun, right? Saturn gives no benefit if that's your point of view. Saturn will hurt you. It's not Saturn hurting you, it's your own immaturity and ignorance hurting you. Saturn does not reward that. Saturn rewards just saying, yep, that's real. That's what it is. And sitting with that and going deep into that wisdom. So this is the next cycle. This is the Capricorn cycle. We're going to be really landing in that, hopefully, right? And of course, with Saturn now there, moving into that place, we can really feel it. He's bringing that energy. By the time we have the new moon, as you can see, by the time we have the new moon, Saturn will be there. He'll just have poked his head in there. And it's in Shravana nakshatra. Shravana is literally the symbol of the ear. It's ruled by Lord Vishnu. who is the maintainer of the balance in the universe. Vishnu is the one that sees that everything is in its proper place, and everything is, you know, in the right order. The good things happen, the bad things happen, the karma is all taking place the way it should. You know, great writings by that are related to Lord Vishnu are like the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mahabharata, all the Indian epics of those big of those stories are really, they're usually about Lord Krishna, but he was an avatar of Lord Vishnu who comes into these chaotic situations, the chaos of the world. That's what Lord Vishnu maintains. So we have this world so that we can engage in all this karma, engage in all these activities. We engage in all these activities so that we can know the nature of who we are. And we either lose ourselves in these activities, lose our true nature, we lose our essence in all of the dramas, all the emotions, all of the attachments, or we remember the self in the midst of this. That's what all the the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita and all that is about remembering the self in the midst of all of the chaotic situations. So Lord Vishnu is the one who maintains all of that, and he's the ruler of this nakshatra of Shravana. So Shravana also is, the symbol is the ear, or it's about hearing and listening. And when you listen, again, this listening, this divine quality of listening also has to do with things like mantra, sacred sound, and also silence. If you want to find Saturn energy, if you really want to know what Saturn energy is, it's silence. Inside your being is silence. It's quiet, it's pure silence. Right now, if you have a relationship with silence, I mean, like if you've cultivated a relationship with silence, then you can conjure it up at any moment. I'm doing it right now. I'm feeling silence. When you do if you've done a lot of meditation, or if you've really connected with that thing that is silent and unfazed by anything, then you can always feel the silence within, no matter what. Again, this is what meditation can give, is it gives you a connection to that silent part of your being. And it's in that silence that you are liberated, that you're free. Because nothing touches that. That layer of silence is actually beyond karma. It's beyond action. And it's its own reward, it's its own world. And it's not the world of time. It's the world of the self. And the real key with Shravana, the real key of listening, is that when you listen, you hear it, sound goes to a point of silence within you. And that one of the ways that I learned how to feel the silence within was excuse me, sound meditation. You know, one of the reasons they hit a bowl or bang a gong in Buddhist ceremonies. By the way, Saturn is very much Buddhist kind of practices as well. Simplistic practices, which are in many ways the best for meditation. As much as I love all the Indian, the Hinduism, the celebration, that's also silence there, but there's so much going on. In fact, this is what Buddha did. Buddha came and said, forget all of that stuff. This is just a distraction. This is just a lot of pageantry. All these gods and deities and all this stuff is too distracting. Forget it. There's no God. There's just the moment. There's just breath. Forget all that stuff and be present with the breath. Simple. But what they do when they bang a gong or they hit something is what you do is you follow the sound. You let the sound go in, and then you follow it back to the point of silence. You follow it. You listen as intently as you can, and it gets dimmer and dimmer, and you're completely focused on the vibration, and you feel the vibration, the sound waves vibrating your eardrum, and you concentrate, and eventually, as it gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, it disappears in silence. So when you trace that back, and you're immersed in that sound, as it gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and becomes silent, you're silent. Not just you're silent, you're touching the silence in you. You're then in communion with your layer of silence. And you feel this thing that's silent and still and never moves and is totally peaceful. So they hit the gong, everyone sits there and listens, and it's resonating in their ear, and then it gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, less and less and less and less. And before you know it, it disappears, and with it, they disappear. That identity that's listening to the thing, to the sound, gets dimmer and dimmer, and then it's gone. Right? Shunya, nothingness, is there. And this is the real essence of Shravana. It's not necessarily sound and mantra. It's the silence that links up with the sound. Because sound is just the opposite of silence. Silence is just the flip coin, the opposite end of the coin of sound. So, for example, if your mind is full of noise, you can't hear anything. Like when you're really listening to music, you kind of empty yourself, or you should, to really listen to it. So it's a beautiful dichotomy. And the other thing about sound that's remarkable is every other sense, you're behind it. Like you're behind your eyes looking out. You literally, you move your eyes to focus. It's almost like you're focusing on it. Or smell, it goes into your nose, like it has to go in. Your skin, you reach out and touch something or something. There's a point, a contact point. With sound, you're in the center of it. You're always in the center of sound. You see animals turn their ears to greater, so they can, get the sound more. By the way, I always wish we had ears like that. Wouldn't it be cool if we had ears like a cat or a dog? Just, I don't know why, but I always love those fake ears. They look really cool. But with sound, we're the center, and it goes into us and disappears into silence. And so meditations on sound are very powerful for this lunation cycle. That's why I'm telling you this. And for the next couple years with Saturn going through Capricorn. And you can see how this is related to Capricorn. By the way, not to riff too much on this, but these are the kinds of things that are exactly why the nakshatras and the rashis are aligned. To think that this energy of Shravana wouldn't be in Capricorn, the reflective internal quality of Saturn, where we sit and go inward and concentrate and be still and feel sound and existence flow into us while we work through the Vishnu karma, and that quality of sound and stillness and solitude isn't part of Capricorn. Just makes no sense. To think that it just kind of wanders all around the different zodiac signs, which is what it would be if it was connected to a tropical signs, just doesn't make any sense. So this is really one of those nakshatras as well. All of them are, but you can really see it in this quality of Capricorn. Stillness, sound, introspection. So again, this also, before we get to being able to sit still like that, though, we have to still our mind, usually with sacred sounds and sacred vibrations. Sacred sound and sacred vibration is what mantras are. And you know, this is a purification of our mind. If you don't do any kind of mantra, or your mind isn't purified at all, your thoughts are just chaotic, random. They're not uplifted. They're not inspired. They're just, God knows what comes into your head based on what you eat, based on what you see, based on this. Your mind is just going crazy. The first, and it's hard to meditate then, if not impossible. You can't meditate then. Your mind is just going nuts. So what a mantra does, and again, Shravana as hearing and chanting and speech is also connected to mantra. And, you know, music is often a very powerful bridge. You put the mantra to a melody, so things like kirtan. But this is like an in-between step between stillness that I'm talking about and silence, and where your mind is now, which is not. There has to be a disciplinary intermediary function, which is what mantra is. And even in between mantra, you have things like kirtan, where like, okay, well, let's take and make the mantra like musical, right? Because then it evokes a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. All that's connected to the same process. Eventually, all of that disappears into silence. And this is why saying mantras, especially like long mantras, eventually after you say the mantras, and I'm talking about like the 1,000 names and things like that, after you're done saying 1,000 names of one of the gods, your mind is empty. It is still. It is silent. You don't have to then figure out, how do I do it? Again, this is what people, when they say, well, I can't meditate, right? Because you're not doing anything to make yourself meditate. And so because you can't go where you are now to meditating, you don't do it. But nobody does that. This is why, again, saying mantra, especially like if you start saying long mantras, this is why people sit there and recite the 1,000 names, because first of all, it really disciplines your mind. Your ego hates it, at least at first, because your ego is lazy and wants to run crazy. But what happens is, as you discipline yourself to do it, after you say those 1,000 names, your mind is completely still and empty. And you're sitting there enveloped in this sacred vibration of the mantra and this layer of silence. Nobody had to teach you how to do it at that point. It's science. It works. If you say all these mantras, your mind will be silent when you're done. I guarantee you. And you'll feel, oh, okay. You'll have that experience of silence. And that's meditation. So again, some people do it through more physical stuff too as well, like moving your pot, like yoga postures. By the time you go through and do all of that and breathe a certain way and move your body and you sit down, you're silent. Your mind is still and peaceful. You don't have to then say, well, now what do I do? No, you've done it. You did it. That's what it is. But then you're also primed, because now your mind is more peaceful. You're then primed to just do those things directly. Maybe you don't need to go through 1,000 mantras or hour practice then to connect to that silence in the mind again, like I just said. After you've done that and you then learn how to connect with that, you can do it more directly. But chances are you'll also enjoy saying the mantras, because the mantras are to deities that you love or gurus, and it's enjoyable. And again, this is all things that are related like to Vishnu. Vishnu, again, is very much related to Mercury, to Lord Krishna. You see, it's all a play. It's light. It's a leela. It's all a divine play. Don't take things so seriously. Now, again, this is in Capricorn, where we tend to take things really seriously. We take our illusion seriously. We take our ego seriously. We take our the wrong things seriously, because there's nothing really to worry about. And we take all these wrong things seriously. And in showing us, all right, yes, this is serious, we realize nothing serious. Nothing of this earth is real, ultimately. So it's a very beautiful transformation that starts to happen in Capricorn, and with what Saturn really brings. And what happens with spiritual practices, for sure. So these are a lot of the energies of this new moon in Capricorn. And for the next 30 days, this is the real seed principle to be working with. Cultivate more stillness, silence, peace through mantra. And again, a great intermediary is things like kirtan. Kirtan is sacred sounds being sung. And I really think it's great, especially in the West, all the great kirtan artists that came back from India, particularly a lot of those from the Neem Karoli Baba lineage. One second. That would be like Bhagwan Das, Krishna Das, Jayutal. A lot of them came back from Neem Karoli Baba's ashram and really brought a lot of kirtan to the West. Not just from them, but, you know, kirtan is a great intermediary because it's sort of like music we're used to, you know, but you're singing these mantras. But even that, it's very blissful. When you sing all these mantras, they usually stop in between and you just sit there in stillness and silence and peace, because it feels so good to sing these names of God in this very devotional way. And then the next graduation is maybe to some just mantras directly, or maybe some long mantras. If you're saying smaller, you know, shorter mantras, then some longer ones are good as well, like the Lalita Sahasranam, the 1,000 names. You can even just listen to them. Even just listening to them like on YouTube or something and hearing them gives you a vibration. And it purifies the Akashic air, and it gives you that immediate connection, even just hearing the mantras. Then you can say the mantras yourself. And again, there are mantras in the secular writings that we are meant to say. The sounds that we're meant to say are shown in the texts. For example, like I said, the Lalita Sahasranama and things like that are mantras that secular people are meant to say. Like they're not mantras that you need to be trained to say, like something from the Sri Rudram or something from the Vedas, where you need to be trained how to pronounce it exactly. No, there are mantras that you can say, long ones. Sindurana Vigraham Trinayanam Manikyamoli Sporatara Naka Shekaram Sitmukima Pinya Vakshoroham Bhani Byamali Pona Ratna Chasakamartopiblam Bibratim. Like this long mantras that you can say that take an hour to say it, that are in the regular secular writings. And it's meant for householders to say those things all the time. And they really purify your mind. And by the way, what happens when people get pujas, especially when you pay a priest to say mantras on your behalf, you know, those things are powerful, but you can say the mantras yourself, at least certain ones. You don't have to pay a priest to say them on your behalf, because a lot of it is also related to the intention and the attention, and you can bring that out yourself. So this is a lot of what's going on in this next year, is this relationship with sound and mantra and stillness and silence, and connecting to taking what inspired you and bringing it out into the world of form and tangibility and consequence. Because what you believe has consequences, right? What you believe has consequences. It's not just, oh, somehow I believe this and it doesn't mean anything. No, it means something. Your beliefs inform almost everything you do. And Saturn is Capricorn is where those beliefs, we're aware of how important they are and how those beliefs need to be acted upon and brought into existence. So I see people have been making comments, and of course I'm just going through this. Even just going through it's 45 minutes. It's a lot to talk about because there are big shifts happening right now. And so if people have been asking a bunch of questions and I haven't answered them, yeah, I get it. I haven't. So if people want to ask a few questions now, maybe they can ask a couple questions, and I'll see how long I want to answer them. Take a little drink here. So seems like I don't see a whole lot of questions here, but either way, I'm glad that I was able to do this, and big shifts happening right now. Big change. Saturn is now in Capricorn, where he's going to be for the next couple years, next 3 years in Capricorn, and we're starting it off with this new moon. So ring in the Capricorn energy, folks. Let it rock. Have a good one.